and welcome. Welcome to the Blessed Podcast, where we join Jesus where he is already at work, where we live, learn, work, and play. At Love KC, we believe that every person should hear the good news of Jesus from a friend. If that's going to happen, it will take all of us. The letters BLESS in the Blessed Podcast stand for begin with prayer, listen to God and to those around you, eat together, serve, and share. Share your story and share his story. As always, we have free resources to help you live on mission at our website, lovekc.net, and there you can find upcoming events. We interview a wide range of people on the Blessed Podcast, well-known authors, speakers, and leaders, plus everyday people, because we want you to meet those you might not get to meet on your own, and we want you to be able to identify with someone a lot like you. Our podcasts drop the 15th and 30th of the month. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe and share. Now let's jump into this episode of the Blessed Podcast with your host, Gary Kendall, and co-host, Samantha Lane Krebs.
Welcome to the Blessed Podcast, where we join Jesus where he's already at work, where we live, learn, work, and play. And we'd like to invite guests who are doing something that is living out the mission that's using the gifts God has given to them, taking advantage of their background of experience, and then applying it in ways that show today that God is working in and through them. So we have a guest today we're excited about, and it's Dave Francis. Welcome, Dave.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Yeah. And if you're on the podcast, you probably have met Samantha Ling, my co-host.
Yes,
so welcome, Samantha.
Yep. Thanks, Gary. It's always good to be here.
Yeah. So we're looking forward to diving in. I had the chance to be able to meet Dave at a coffee shop at Caleb's and talk about his coaching career. And also, we didn't just talk about the past, we talked about the future. And Dave is in an exciting transition that I think you'll want to hear about today. So I just want to invite you as a listener to lean in and then think about your own experience here, so that as you're thinking about the things God is calling you to do, that you might be able to see ways that you could continue to take advantage of what God puts in front of you every day and grow in that. So Dave, take a moment, if you would, and kind of catch us up on some of the places where you've been, and then a little bit of what you see coming in the future.
Well, I have, my background really is business. Okay. I have, but on the side for 35 years, I've been coaching kids. I coached for my first 20 years. I coached my 4 kids in everything they did. Soccer, basketball, roller hockey, and I don't even know how to roller skate. But, you know, I just loved working with kids. And that's just something that I would take the time to do because that was something that I felt like I enjoyed. It was something that God gave me great enjoyment in. So for the first 20 years, it was youth sports. In the last 15, it's gone high school. I've coached high school tennis at Kansas City Christian. Started the program there. A couple of my kids were tennis players and wanted to play, and there really wasn't much of a tennis program. So I raised my hand as a parent and said, "Hey, I'll be happy to volunteer and do that." So for 7 years, I coached high school tennis at Kansas City Christian. And loved doing it. My youngest ended up getting a scholarship to play in college, which was really, really exciting, and kind of led to my next assignment, if you will, coaching-wise. After she got finished with her coaching or her playing in college, she got a teaching job at Blue Valley High School and became the assistant tennis coach. Well, the head coach ended up deciding to move on, and she was given the head coaching job. And here at 24, 25 years old, to be asked to coach one of the top 5 tennis programs in the state of Kansas, she called me so excited and said, "Dad, you won't believe what just happened. They just offered me the head coaching job here. And I said, Kim, that is awesome. That is so cool. And she goes, oh, but I don't know what I'm doing. Is there any possibility you would be my assistant coach? Yes. So for 5 years, my daughter and I coached boys and girls tennis at Blue Valley High School. She got married, moved to Colorado. They asked me to stay on, and I stayed on for another 3 years, retiring just last spring from that. So the last 15 years, I've been a high school tennis coach, and just loved it. You know, that was such a fun time. So that's kind of my career, and I'm really now looking toward that future and what that has in store for me.
I think that's so exciting, Dave. Have you ever heard of the book Halftime by Bob Buford?
Yes. I read the book Halftime. Yeah, I read it. Yes. I read it, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, but boy, what a great book.
Yeah. I mean, it really describes kind of what you're doing when you take the best of a long stretch or season of your life.
Yeah.
And then you evaluate what you did best and what you enjoyed the most and where your passion was released. And then you, in the next or the second half of your life, you work to maximize the time that you put in those areas. It sounds just like what you're doing.
Yeah, no, that's right. And, it's funny because that book certainly had an impact on my life in terms of, going from success to significance. Not that I experienced the kind of success that Buford did, but God has been gracious. I built a number of businesses, been able to sell some of those businesses. It's been really a fun ride from a business standpoint. But all along, he's been stirring in me this thing about significance. Not that owning a business and employing people and so forth isn't significant, but there's things that are of greater significance. I always tried to have a kingdom business, one that glorified him. But at the same time, there was always this thing in me that was wanting to go outside of that business world. So, I jumped into coaching early. And, the thing that I really learned from this is, man, coaching is a tough job. And especially at the high school level. It's not quite as tough at the, when you're dealing with a sixth grade soccer team or whatever, but at the same time, it's a challenge from that standpoint. At the end of the day, you don't necessarily feel like going out and running after kids and getting after kids and doing this and doing that. But that, I find that it brought more life to me than frustration and so forth. But, my couple of things that I really look at in coaching, the number one thing is to make it fun. Kids don't want a job. They want to play, and playing is sports. They want to have fun. So I always try to work into, even when I was coaching Blue Valley High School tennis, a top 5 tennis program in the state of Kansas, we tried to make it fun. And I feel like we accomplished that, especially when I look at my last year. I had 27 seniors playing tennis at Blue Valley in the boys and the girls program. So I lost 27 seniors when they graduated last year. But that indicates to me, not all of those kids were playing anywhere close to the upper level of what our team would field in any tournament. But they just loved playing tennis. They loved being together. They loved the event. They loved the social aspect of it. And so we would do what we could to make that attractive. And it's amazing how the conversations around school happen that basically say, man, you ought to come out for tennis. It's fun. It's really fun. And so we went from, at Kansas City Christian, we went from 6 players when we very first started it to 24 after when I left, what was that, 8 years or 7 years later. And at Blue Valley, we started with about 24. And we ended up having 50 girls or 50 boys come out for tennis every season. So unfortunately, we had to do cuts because there were only 2 coaches and 6 courts, but we did 2 practices a day. So it was, we tried to make it available to kids and at the same time make it fun. So, and another thing that I really feel like as a coach that is really the number one thing of a job of a coach is to be an encourager. X's and O's are really important, no question, especially the higher you get. Andy Reid's got his X's and O's down, okay? But you've got to be an encourager. You've got to encourage those players and even those parents to be able to see what you're trying to build. And it's not just a winning program because wins don't always happen. In fact, sometimes they don't happen at all. That Kansas City Christian, we weren't highly successful until the last couple of years, but that was something you just had to work for. But in the meantime, have fun and encourage, wrap your correction around with encouragement, correction, encouragement when you're coaching. The other thing is I found that coaches have a great influence, a great impact on kids and parents and families. Billy Graham once said that a coach will impact more people in 1 year than the ordinary person or an average person will in a lifetime. Mm-hmm. And that's true. I mean, you start doing the numbers, you start calculating that out, because I was impacting kids, little brothers and sisters, because they would show up. All of a sudden, they would show up 2 or 3 years later on my team. Mm-hmm. And the parents engaging and kids coming back after they graduate. You realize the impact that you have on kids mm-hmm. is tremendous as a coach. And, for Billy Graham to say that, who's a guy who has influenced an awfully lot of people, he sees that value of having a coach that's an encourager and bringing people in and helping them see their potential, because that's the one thing I always tried to do is help these athletes to see beyond what they thought they could do.
That's so good.
And
I want to say, Dave, as a mom of 3, and my oldest son is so into sports, I cannot thank you enough as a parent, because you're so right. I think the influence you have, the way you can really shape a child. I know, my son would listen to the coach like in a heartbeat, on and off the field, even when he sees him like at Walmart,
Yes, right.
Like he probably do whatever he tells him at Walmart too. So I think it's amazing. And I kind of want to ask you, shifting a little bit from coaching the kids, as a coach, maybe how you and your daughter, you end up kind of coaching her, who is also a coach, assisting her. Right. What's the difference in that? Kind of what are you thinking as you're considering coaching coaches instead of the kids, and maybe the why behind it?
Well, with my daughter, it was really interesting because I at that point, I had never been an assistant coach. I've always been a head coach. And I questioned whether I could do it, whether I could not have this be my program. I tend to be that way. I'm a bit of a control freak from that standpoint. And but God was gracious, and he enabled me to be able to be behind the scenes and communicate with her. Off the grid, and it was her program. I would go to certain tournaments, and other coaches who knew me from Kansas City Christian and so forth would come up and say, "Hey, coach, you're back in." Hey, and then they think I was the head coach, and I'd say, "No. She's the head coach." And here's this girl that looked like she was a high schooler. She looked like she could have been the number 1 tennis player on the team, but she was the head coach. And so, that was something of a transition. In terms of coaching coaches, in teaching, you go through education classes and you go through all of the training. coaches have no training, really. I mean, when you really look at it, there's not this thing that if your son is playing soccer, or your son is playing, youth soccer or youth baseball or whatever, the guys that are running that or the women that are running that, a lot of times they haven't gone through any kind of training in terms of how to be a coach. With that influence, that's can be dangerous. All they're doing is mimicking the coaching they received when they were an athlete, whether it was good or whether it was bad. Okay. So you start looking at that and see these new coaches coming in without any training at all in terms of how to think about coaching, how to address parents, how to address discipline issues or any of those types of things. That's a challenge. And then also coaches are a little bit like pastors in that we can't admit we're proud people. We can't admit that we're having trouble, that we're having a problem at home, right, that we're having a problem connecting with our kids, that we're having a problem in any phase, because if you start admitting to your players and your kids and your parents and so forth that you're having issues or having problems, boy, does that get out. And then all of a sudden, the confidence level that they have in you as the head coach bottoms down.
So what you're saying is a coach needs a coach.
A coach needs a coach.
Right.
And that coach needs to be off of the reporting grid. It can't be the athletic director. Sometimes it can't even be your head coach. If you're an assistant coach and you're struggling, can I admit to my head coach that, man, I'm having a hard time?
Right.
Well, maybe you're not tough enough for this. Maybe you shouldn't be doing this. And all of a sudden, those questions. So as we look at this and we look at this idea of creating coaches that coach coaches in what I've coined as repurposed coaching, right, or vision coaches, that is something that I didn't have. And the vision coaches that I have with me now, there's 10 of us. All of them will tell you, man, I wish I had that when I was a younger coach. Absolutely. I wish I would have had that access to somebody that had walked 35 or 50 years in my shoes and be able to communicate to me just tips and tricks of how to be a coach.
I love that. Just in my stage of life, I find myself in coaching situations, and we end up talking about front stage stuff. That's what everybody else sees. The work you have to do that it's part of the job. And we talk about how to do that well, and what are your goals? How do you how do you meet the goals? But we also talk about backstage, stuff. Yeah. The stuff that, and more often than not, that's what actually makes the real difference in the long run, is whether they take care of the backstage stuff. Right. And when you have a chance to coach coaches, I have a sense that that's part of what you're getting at. Yeah, no, it's not that I have all the answers. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a psychologist. None of us have that. Although as a coach, you kind of have to have a little of that just in dealing with all the personalities you deal with. But I really feel like we can honestly also, and this gives us an opportunity with some of these coaches to be able to say, man, that is a challenge. Can I pray for you? Mm-hmm. Right. Can I pray? And they may go, whoa, wait a minute, but my experience is 8 out of 10 people, maybe even 9 out of 10 people that are going through a challenge in their life. If you ask them, can I pray for you? They always say yes. Right. They always give you that. Right. They may be going, man, anything will help. That's true. Yeah. But we know, as vision coaches, we know
that God is the answer for a lot of the problems that we ran into as coaches. Did we all do it right? No.
Right.
I didn't do it all right. These coaches didn't do it all. We're not in this position to say, this is how I did it. You ought to do it this way. It's more like, I made that mistake. I made a mistake right where you are. I was at a Y and I made the wrong turn.
Yeah.
You ought to go this way.
Yeah.
Okay.
We could save
what we can do is maybe share our failures to help them not fail.
And you don't have to learn everything the hard way, right? You can learn some things from others.
Because none of us went through any of the training. We went through, it was the training of being a coach, of just doing it and learning as you go.
Yeah. Dave, I remember when we were eating breakfast at Caleb's, a question that I asked you there, I want to ask you here too, because I thought the answer was really good. I asked you, how did you come to the conclusion? Like how did God get your attention? What were some of the ways that God gave you clues that things were about to change? And then what choices did you make to kind of like step into that? Because I think that there are people listening today, maybe they won't ever be a coach who coaches other people, but they are people who live on mission. You'll probably have some coaches, but there probably are people who live on mission who think, you know what? I think that I was made for more. I think there's something else I can do in my life. I haven't, like my best days are not all behind me. There's something I can offer. But how do you get from, I have this wild hair idea to, I really think God is leading me and you're making steps to follow that leading?
Wow. It started with a book, actually. There's a book that was written by a pastor here in Kansas City who was also the chief's chaplain for several years. His name is Philip Kelly.
Okay, I know Philip Kelly.
Called Divine Disturbance.
Okay.
I read that book. Geez, I read that book some time ago. I don't even know exactly. I've read it and I've reread it and I've reread it. That's why I don't really know what. But it's all built on the story of Nehemiah. And the whole lot, and one among many things that impacted me in what he said is if you're looking for what God might be calling you to do, if you're looking for that divine disturbance, then pray that God would break your heart for those things that break his. Okay.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, well, how does that fit with my story? Well, I prayed that for you. He said, I challenge you to do it for 30 days. Well, I did. I did it for years, just going, what is it? And I wasn't desperate. I was just seeking what God might have next. I was busy, but at the same time, seeking what God might have next. It wasn't until God could get my attention. I sold my part of my business back to my partners. I retired from coaching, which was the most difficult thing I've ever done, actually. My mother passed away, which was a job that I loved doing, but it was something that took up time. All of a sudden, I found myself without anything going on. And I was still praying that, God, what is it that breaks your heart? Well, after I retired from coaching and August 15th came around, which is when August 15th of this year, of 2022, 2022 came around. That's the day of tryouts for girls in high school. And I was brokenhearted. I was going, man, I want to be there. I want to be there. And it hurt. It sounds silly. You're kind of going, what a wimp, but no, that's something God had for me and was a blessing to me and a blessing to others, I hope. But all of a sudden I realized that's what breaks my heart right now. Is that which breaks his heart? And so I started really praying about that. And I rode my bicycle a lot during that period of time. And during that, God all of a sudden started talking. and he said that he doesn't want me to retire. He wants me to repurpose. And I thought, okay, what does that mean? What does that mean? And a little bit further, I want you to repurpose yourself, but I want you to repurpose those like you. So, it didn't come to me. I'm a little slow. It didn't come to me immediately what this calling was and what this thing was. But all of a sudden, I got this sense that it's retired coaches. That when we step away from the game after 25 to 50 years, 35, 50, whatever, how many number of years you're in it, you're brokenhearted. Whether you want to admit it or not, you miss the camaraderie of other coaches. You miss the kids. You miss the Friday night, if you play football, the Friday night lights, you miss that. And now all of a sudden, when you retire, you are immediately put on the sidelines. You're immediately put on the bench, and you're not in the game anymore. And it happens really, really fast. My heart was to get retired coaches back in the game. That's what God was telling me to do, is get retired coaches back in the game. They have got what I need to give to today's coaches. And it's like, whoa, do you understand how big that vision is? Do you understand how many coaches there? I mean, there's 10,000 coaches in Kansas City. How do you touch 10,000 coaches? Yeah. Well, I'm not called to touch 10,000. I'm called to touch those that he puts in front of me. So, my scorecard is not a number. My scorecard is what does God put in front of me, and what do I do with that? Period. If he puts one in front of me, it's just like my family. Okay. My wife is one that he's put in front of me. My kids are 4 that he's put in front of me. My grandkids are 6 that he's put in front of me. Okay. And that is what I'm called to do. So I heard the verse 2 Timothy 2:2, which everybody's very familiar with. And it says, pass along the things you've heard me say to reliable people. Nobody's more reliable than a coach, as far as I've found. They are extremely reliable people who will be qualified to teach others. Those are retired coaches.
Wow.
And all of a sudden I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm being called to repurpose retired coaches.
Yeah.
And through that, we will impact current coaches. But the goal here is to repurpose retired coaches who can then teach others.
Wow.
That all of a sudden, when that light bulb went off, it was like, whoa, this is awesome. This is so exciting. This is so much fun. Because all of a sudden am I off of the bench? Yeah, I'm still off. I'm still on the bench, but I'm now not worried about the game or the match or the tournament. I'm focused on an individual, on a coach. And my goal is to touch that coach, who can then touch, because of his influence or her influence, can touch thousands of people beyond that.
I love that.
So all of a sudden it goes, boom.
Yeah.
So I couldn't, I'm sure it's pretty clear. I couldn't be more excited about where God has me headed. I don't want to, one thing that he made really clear is I told him I don't really want to build anything else. I've been building businesses, and I just want to just kind of find a ministry opportunity or whatever. Well, he goes, hey, what do you mean you don't want to build something? We're building it my way. You now follow me and let's build what I want to build, because I helped you build all that other stuff that you wanted to build. Now, let's go build something together. Let's rebuild the walls of Jerusalem.
Wow.
And you look at Nehemiah. Nehemiah was not an architect. He wasn't a contractor. He had no idea how to mix concrete. He was a cupbearer for the king. But all of a sudden, his heart broke for that wall and said, I'm going to go do it. And he went and he became the general contractor.
Right.
Rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem and coordinating all of these people. But that was God. And I've seen God work like that. He's opened doors to me at the Olathe, Blue Valley, and Shawnee Mission School District athletic director levels to talk to them and communicate with them and engage with them to bring our vision coaches in to support their coaches.
I was going to say, can I get you to come to South KC? We need a lot of that. But I just want to say, Dave, first of all, just thank you for being so vulnerable. I feel like as you share, you're really sharing the struggles and some are just really transparent. I really appreciate that. And, you shared, in this next season, God has really called you to build, so in kind of seeing that, the building phase of this next stage of, your call, what do you see as some like challenges and even celebrations, kind of things that like you already feel like, wow, this is like definitely going to be a challenge or like, hey, this is going to be a win. Like this is a celebration moment, what do you see in that as you're transitioning and building this out?
Because of my personality, and I know myself pretty well, God knows me better, which is good. I think one of the biggest challenges is that I don't get ahead of him. Is that I don't all of a sudden go, hey, Lord, let's go this way. Oh, hey, I see an opportunity over here. I did that in business. Okay. He blessed it. It was good. But he wants me to follow. He wants me to be big ears, small mouth, not big mouth, little ears, which has been my history to some degree. So I think that's challenge number one, is that I would be teachable and I would stay as a follower of him, not try to lead this, okay? Because it's his program, it isn't mine. And I've tried to make that very clear to my vision coaches. This isn't Dave's program, this is your program, this is ours. Okay.
That's really good.
We own this. And it doesn't make money. Funny thing is, I asked God early on in this, okay, what's the revenue model? Well, that's my mindset is if you're going to start something, you've got to have a revenue model. And I could sense that he laughed at me. And he said, Dave, there is no revenue model for this. We give it away.
Wow.
Great. Okay, let's do that. I don't know what that looks like. But that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to give what was given to us. And so, that's one challenge. The other challenge is I think just to, I want to be able to, and I really, again, I appreciate this opportunity to share this. I don't know who's hearing it. I don't know if but I really feel as though I'm not looking to all of a sudden go to Lee Summit and go to Liberty and go to Chicago. I'm not looking to take this and start it up everywhere. Although I know the Holy Spirit will do that. I just sense that there's something about this that somebody's going to hear about it. They're going to tell somebody about it. I may have a conversation with them about how I did it and what happened. Go do it. Just like the disciples said, go do it. Okay. God is going to say, go do it in your city. because there's retired coaches all over this country that are qualified to teach others. And so, I think that the challenge is just, again, not getting ahead of him, letting God unfold this onion and peel it back and peel this back and peel that back and let him do the work, as opposed to me feeling as though I've got to do the work, or to sit there and keep my calculations of, okay, how many people did we talk to? How many people were touched? How many people no, that isn't our goal. Our goal is to touch retired coaches, to get retired coaches to reach out and touch current coaches.
Yeah. Dave, I sense that's going to happen. Can you give us a way they could contact you? We'll put some contact information in our notes, but you may have people listening today, and some of them may have coached in the athletic world. Like this has been our primary place of focus today, but there also are people who could coach in nearly every vocation, that exists. So how could they get a hold of you if they wanted to?
My email address is repurposedcoaching@gmail.com. You can reach me there. You can send me a text if you'd like at 816-803-9727. It was funny because as I was sitting there looking and thinking, okay, people would ask me, they'd go, oh, so what you're doing is you're creating mentors and you're creating coaches. And it's like, no, I already have coaches, and I'm not really, mentors is a word that is already owned. Okay. And God wanted me to put a name on the guys that are doing this that is his stamp, not something that's already there and out there and has a predetermined idea of what it is. So that's where Vision Coach came from, what we're doing is we're not focused on the field or the court or the track and the X's and O's of that. We're looking like this. We're looking at the life of a coach. We're looking at the challenges of coaching, not the X's and O's. If you want to talk X's and O's and it just so happens two football coaches are sitting down together, great. But that's not our purpose. Our purpose is to look beyond and look at life as a coach. And so, I love that. We also have got there's cheerleading, there's all kinds of different types of coaches. And I'm not looking to match up or sport for sport. In fact, sometimes it'd be best if me as a tennis coach would be best to sit down with a basketball coach. Coaching is the same. Regardless of what sport you're coaching, it's when you start executing it at the level of the floor or the course or the court, it changes. But I live in that same fishbowl that all coaches live in when it comes to parents, athletes, and all of the pressures, family, your kids, all of those pressures that you have as a coach, just like a pastor.
Yeah. Dave, this has been so good. Thank you so much. If you're listening today, I really want you to drop some comments in. Maybe you want to go and share this information. So if you're listening on iTunes or Google Play, you can subscribe and catch all of the Blessed podcast. If you're watching actually on the Love KC Living on Mission page, then you can share this with others. It's easy to do. So I encourage you to do that. And we'll drop in Dave's contact information here. And I just want to say thanks again, Dave, for being our guest on the Blessed podcast. And blessed wishes to you as you launch in this new career. It sounds exciting.
Well, with God, it's always exciting. I find it's never boring. So
That's for sure.
Amen.
Samantha, thank you for your part today.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dave.
thank you. I appreciate it a lot.
You guys have a great day. And those of you who are listening, we'll see you next time. God bless you.
Blessings.
Bye-bye.
That's it for this episode of the Blessed Podcast. We hope this podcast informed and encouraged you. Remember to subscribe on your favorite format, iTunes, Google Play, or YouTube. If you want to see the interview on Zoom, hop over to our Love KC Living on Mission Facebook group. Have a blessed day.